Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thank you for sticking around. So last week, Doc, we saw the Iran nuclear deal go into full effect, and boy, I gotta say, I think that there were some folks that didn't see this thing going. According to independent UN inspectors, according to the folks that are entrusted with implementing this deal, Iran has complied with all parts of it. They poured concrete down the heavy water plutonium reactor that everyone was so concerned about. They've shipped all or mostly all within the guidelines of their fissile nuclear material to Russia. They have scaled down their production and the other reactors, shut down thousands and thousands of the reactors that were spinning, and it seems like they're abiding by their side of the agreement, and so the international community has released some of this money that they've been held up for decades now. I guess the question that I would have to you as you're looking at this is, are you at all hopeful? Are you at all more positive about this deal? You were pretty critical of it about, 6 months ago, 3 months ago.
Well, I will tell you, I'm still critical of the deal. Here's the main reason. They set the bar so low that an old fat man like me could step over it. You know, it's one of these things where if you set it low enough, they're going to be able to meet this. Second thing is, it hasn't changed their belligerent government. And we'll talk a little bit about this when we're talking about the boat and the hostages. Now, there are a lot of people that are going to benefit from Iran having all that money. Businesses in Germany and Europe who are desperate for new markets. Desperate. They're willing to sign a deal with the devil if it gets them more money in the door. The Russians are excited because they're getting all this nuclear material. And don't kid yourselves, they're not just taking it in and going, well, hey, we'll get rid of it for you. They're going to be making their own nuclear weapons with it, and it's free stuff. The third reason not to be all that excited is this is how Iran operates. They are nice, but the rhetoric is terrible. And if they're getting what they want, they'll go with the program until they're not getting what they want. The last thing to keep in mind is Iran wouldn't have been even at the table letting the International Atomic Agency in if it wasn't for George Bush's invasion of Iraq. If you go back and you read the headlines back then, it is all about Iran's not letting the inspectors in, they're not doing this, they're not doing that. And the last thing is the inspectors are restricted from what they can inspect. And a lot of these places are through self-report. So, if you're a bad guy and you're going like, well, geez, I have this gun, well, you have to destroy that gun. All right, who's going to inspect it? Well, we're going to rely on you telling us the truth. That's why you can't get that excited. Now, I'm sure you have a different view of this, and I'm willing to listen to that.
Well, a couple of things that I would point out is that it's heavily disputed why Iran came back to the table. The sanctions that have crippled their economy for several years, a lot of which were started by the Bush administration, maintained, and then ramped up under the Republican Congresses during the Obama administration. But it is clear, it is absolutely undisputed, that under the Bush administration, the number of reactors and cyclotrons and nuclear facilities in Iran went up by hundreds and hundreds of percent. So an administration willing to actually engage with Iran, much in the same way that Nixon engaged with China, the same way that Ronald Reagan engaged with Russia, has derived what I don't think anybody could say is a net negative for non-proliferation of nuclear materials. All the NGOs like the Plowshares Fund, the Foreign Council, or the Foreign Council, whose name escapes me, what I'm trying to come up with, have at least praised the start of the deal here. Iran is, we want folks like this to come in from the cold, and we were able to do it without firing a shot, which is something that has been over the heads of the Iranian people for a long, long time. I mean, how much longer, and this is the criticism, the central criticism I have for a lot of modern Republican politics. I mean, Eisenhower was willing to work with people. Reagan was willing to work with people. Nixon was willing to work with people. George Bush even was willing to work with people until he stopped. He brought Iran in at first and then walked away from the table and let them build nuclear reactors all over the country. And so I think that this is a good first step. It's too bad. I reached out to Rabbi Kaufman, who really knows a lot about this stuff, and it would have been fun to hear his perspective on it. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it tonight. I'm sure that he's anxious to dig into this with us at some point. But the administration was clear from the get-go that this nuclear deal, while it didn't address all of Iran's bad behavior, would at least address something that was an existential threat to security in the Middle East, an existential threat to Israel, and an existential threat to world order just all over the globe. But it did lead to other efforts, and at the same time, the administration put new sanctions on Iran for upping its ballistic missile program. So I don't think that the criticism that the Obama administration has been unserious or in some way naive is fair.
Well, but the other thing is you have to take a look at the law of unintended consequences. I don't think Obama intended for our allies in the Middle East to go, holy cow, this is a bad idea, and abandon us, which is essentially what Saudi Arabia has done. They're reaching out to the Russians. The Jordanians are reaching out to the Russians. The Iranians, nobody wants a strong Iran. That's the truth. So you have these other countries that were ostensibly on our side suddenly reaching out to the Russians, making them the de facto power in the area. I don't think that's good for anybody. We see how they behave towards their neighbors. We see that they're belligerent on the best of days. And I just don't think that giving them an easy in like this is going to help anything. Following Europe's, desires has never been something that's worked out for the best interests of the United States, ever. And I'm not sure how this is going to work out for the best interests of the United States at this time.
Well, now, I guess I would disagree with the idea that we have a strong Iran, or that we have anything approaching a strong Iran. Their economy has been set back decades. The investment that they're going to be able to get from any of this money, any of these assets has been unfrozen, is going to be used primarily, according to most international experts, to patch budget holes. And oil is trading at $30 a barrel. Fareed Zakaria on GPS last week said that Iran needs oil prices to be $150 a barrel to balance its own budget based on its oil production. So I think that we're a long way away from seeing anything like an Iran that can be a player on the global stage. And we've delayed their breakout time for a nuclear weapon by a year, which is something that no one thought was possible without a war. So I think that we're on the right track.
In other words, so I'm going to use the words you just said. We have new sanctions on them because they're developing a ballistic missile system.
Which is right.
And they're now a year away from a nuclear bomb.
Rather than 2 or 3 months, which is what they were before.
Well, and the bottom line is a year down the road versus 2 to 3 months down the road doesn't make it any better. And the last thing is, if their economy is so bad, how were they able to develop thousands and thousands of nuclear reactors?
On the backs of their people, are you kidding?
It can't be that bad if they're spending money on that.
On the backs of their people. If we were to completely ignore the American people, if our government was completely to ignore the needs of its citizens and put all of its effort into building up nuclear reactors or to researching that kind of thing, we'd be able to we'd outstrip the world in this entire country would be a nuclear reactor. So that dog doesn't hunt, sir.
Oh yeah, it most certainly does hunt. And on that note, speaking of hunting, we're going to be right back after this break, and we're going to be talking about the Iranian capturing our Navy men and holding them prisoner. We're going to be talking about that right after the break. We're going to continue our discussion about Iran. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We couldn't do the stuff that we love to do on the radio if it wasn't for you. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a minute.